Hey guys, so I did post in the comment the statute I found, which basically says a person will not, as applicable in this case, a person will not release a chemical irritant for an unlawful purpose. And then, depending on what happens when you release that, there's a variety of punishments that can occur. And if someone dies, then it can be a term of life or any term of years. So that's pretty bad. I think that's the statute she's charged under because that's what matched up. I just still haven't seen the indictment yet. I just looked for the statute. So you release this chemical irritant for an unlawful purpose. So the unlawful purpose, I'm sure they're going to say, well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I imagine they'll say that it was battery or something like that. Uh, she was intending to harm the father, and that's an unlawful thing to do, right? And then death results. But this is Michigan, and you have a proximate cause issue, and that might be what the defense is going to hone in on with this whole thing about he was rubbing it in to say that, yes, perhaps she put this on him, but she couldn't have reasonably foreseen it would kill him because it breaks the chain of causation that this guy was so drunk that he eventually, either in a stupor or woke up or whatever, rubbed it all over his body and caused the injuries to be so severe that it killed him. And you wouldn't reasonably foresee that someone would rub a caustic acting substance all over your body if it weren't there to begin with. So that would be the proximate cause issue. And, in the Ethan Crumley case, the parents there took their proximate cause issue on the early appeal, didn't win there. So they're asking the Supreme Court of that state to review it. And so proximate cause is you have a factual causation, but the law will set a limit on how far that can go and you still be held responsible. And that's proximate cause. So if something gets ridiculous, then they'll say, nah, you couldn't have foreseen that to happen, so we won't hold you responsible for it. There was the old case where a guy punched another guy and the guy fell down. And when he fell down, a horse kicked him and that killed him. And they said, we're not going to hold him responsible for the death there. If his head had landed on a rock, yeah, we would, but because you could foresee that when you knock somebody down on the ground, but you wouldn't foresee the horse kicking somebody in the head. They have a higher opinion of horse motives than I do. So that's the statute, and we're waiting. If I've got this stream still working right, which I think I do, waiting for them to come back. They're usually slightly late. And let's see here. So the judge decides how long if she's found guilty. Yeah, probably. And I haven't looked anything up on this in terms of, if there's a guideline for this felony, like a minimum, a maximum, presumptive amount of parole. Every state's different in that regard, but that should be what occurs, I think. And maybe I'll try and glance at that later if I get a chance. So, how do you defend yourself against the charge that you, for an unlawful purpose, released a chemical irritant that caused death? Well, the causing death will be something they attacked. And then the unlawful purpose, they're going to say she didn't really mean to hurt him. And I think, there comes some of the arguments there that she didn't know what she was pouring on him and that sort of thing. So she was not engaged in an unlawful purpose. She was just, trying to show her frustration. Is that going to win? Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. The proximate cause thing will be slightly more interesting if they make that argument, and maybe a source for appeal if she receives any kind of substantial sentence. Yeah, no, this kind of thing typically is, in the old theory of, you take your victim as you find them, sort of thing. So if you happen to, hit what's called the eggshell plaintiff, of course, this isn't a civil case, but it's usually on you that the person was in a bad state. And that's probably, it was true here, but of course he did make it for several months. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't think the fact that he might have had poor health would relieve him under this if the chemical irritant proximately caused his death or her release of it. Yeah, I still think she's going to argue that, if I poured it on him and it was only in a small area on him and he's the one who rubbed it all over himself and that's what caused him to die, which certainly the defense would argue the drinking contributed to that, right? That nobody normal would do that, but he wasn't feeling the pain. Maybe, just barely noticed it at first and then he rubs it all over himself, passes out again. And then here you go. He's burned all over the place by the time anybody comes to get him, because according to the people who found him, he was in very bad shape. They thought he might even be dead at that time. I do understand, I read somewhere that this lye, when it's interacting with water, the fumes that come off of it can also cause somebody to pass out. Well, he was pretty much already passed out anyway from the alcohol. So I think if you add anything on to that, it's going to cause him even a worse situation there. And she probably knew he was drunk. So I don't know that she could use that as any kind of defense to him being, passed out. But it would be part of the narrative that he's the one who actually caused the most damage to himself because he smeared it all over himself. So I could see that. So this is, I thought I put this up, but this was the comment I was talking about. I mean, it's a good thought. I think the drinking will be part of what they argue, but more to the, it's his own fault kind of a thing. And of course, they're trying to make her look heartless in that, oh, she just wanted a credit card. She didn't even care that he was going to the hospital. And then they will try and make him look bad, which they've started that a little bit. Man, maybe they'll get into more of the fighting. So you have an 18-year-old client who probably has no criminal history. She did cry when her brother was testifying. Do you put her on the stand to say, I didn't know what this was? Or you just hope the jury will get that from other witnesses you have? There's a question, right? Do you testify if you're her? I mean, it's your right to if you want to, but usually the traditional wisdom is don't do it. Yeah, now, and certainly I agreed purely based on being drunk, he doesn't deserve it. Now that the drinking might have contributed to the extent of the injuries, and the defense can make a scene out of that. But they may, I think, the he needed killing thing would have to go far beyond the fact that he was just drunk. They'll have to show some pattern of behavior there to really make him look bad for any jurors going to think, well, if I were her, I probably would have thrown a bottle of something on him too. We haven't heard that yet, right? But the defense hasn't put its case on. And we moved through lots of witnesses in the morning session pretty fast. No extensive examinations going on. So we can confirm it's live because the dude's walking back and forth in front of the Great Seal of the state of Michigan. And I did some videos on the Ethan Crumley case, or his parents' case, because that was brought up regarding Darrell Brooks' mother. Why can't she be held criminally responsible? And there's proximate cause issues there, as well as statutory definition issues. But in the Crumley case, the Court of Appeals was very clear to say in their decision, this is a unique case. It's very special. It's not precedent for other things. And you really don't want people going to jail in special, unique cases that aren't precedent for other things. So I can see why his attorneys are taking that up to the Supreme Court version of this. And then, of course, then that also swung over to Virginia, where the mother had the son who got her handgun and took it to school and shot the teacher, who fortunately lived. Well, how come she's not going to jail? But just Ethan Crumley's parents are charged. But in fact, she was charged under federal crimes and state crimes, and she's busy pleading guilty to all that in Virginia. And whereas Crumley's parents don't appear to want to take responsibility for anything that they have done. From what I saw, and for people that tried to make that a race issue, it didn't really work out for them because the minority parent in Virginia is actually pleading guilty to crime. So you can't say this is, where they were let off easy. And I think, Darrell Brooks' mother is that's at the edge of the law, just like this Ethan Crumley case is at the edge of the law for his parents on proximate cause. So that's a fair issue to bring up in any case that, even if I did do this bad thing, I couldn't have foreseen that this horrible thing would happen because of it. So here comes the judge. Her volume is active in my headphones. Yeah.
Calling People versus Imirowicz, case number 22-281-519 FC.
Jason DeSantis, the people, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Frederick on behalf of Ms. Imirowicz, who's standing to my left.
Thank you.
Trooper Hunters.
Thank you. Megan Imirowicz. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think she has to have known how bad it would be with the water, just that it was a chemical irritant. And with the skull and crossbone, the big red warning labels and all those things, the defense counsel has some work to do. Yeah, I certainly never did. And even at the multiple teenage level I am now, I still often don't.
All right, so the jury.
So I guess the jury is inbound. They'll get this thing cranked again. Pretty clean running trial in terms of speed, very efficient. We had the witnesses there ready to go. No gigantic arguments by the attorneys that soak up a lot of time up at the bench.
Be seated. I hope you had a nice lunch. Mr. DeSantis, sir, it's your next witness, please.
Thank you, Judge. We're going to call Dr. Connie Barani, who's already present.
Thank you. Mr. Browning, sir, can you please raise your right hand? You'll be given the oath.
Under penalty of perjury, you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing
Okay,
but
got the volume maxed at the court.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. Can you state your full name for the record?
Yes, I will. My first name is Kanu, Kanu, and last name is Virani, Virani.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. DeSantis.
Thank you. Dr. Barani, you are now currently retired, is that right?
Yes,
Where did you spend your career?
I worked as a medical examiner for Oakland County starting from 1991, and I retired in April 1st, 2022.
All right. And so you served there for 31 years approximately?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of training and education do you have?
Well, I did finish medical school in India before I came in the United States, and that was completed in 1979. 1 year of internship I completed in India as well, and in 1981 I came in United States. Did 4 years of residency training at Northeastern Ohio University in Akron and Canton area. I did 1 year of special training, we call it fellowship, at NYU and New York City Medical Examiner's Office in forensic pathology. And I worked as a forensic pathologist or medical examiner for New York City for about 2 years, and in 1991 moved to Oakland County.
Can you tell us what kind of certifications you have?
Pardon me?
Sorry. Can you tell us what kind of certifications you have?
Oh, certification. I am board certified in forensic pathology, anatomical, and clinical pathology. Those are the part of the pathology we practice in hospital-based area.
And how many autopsies do you think you've performed in your career?
Well over 20,000 altogether.
Dang, dude.
And
a
have
lot.
you been certified as an expert by a court?
Yeah.
Yes.
How many times do you think that's been?
Again, well over 1,000 times.
Judge, I'd move to admit the Dr. Barani as an expert in forensic pathology.
And I have no objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Court is going to qualify you as an expert, sir, in forensic pathology. Go ahead, Mr. DeSantis.
Thank you, Judge. Can you tell the jury what the duties are of a medical examiner?
Medical examiner is, like I said, are the specialized forensic pathologists who do the autopsies and toxicology in the county where they are appointed to determine the cause and manner of death. And those causes of those people who die either suspiciously, violently, or otherwise unexplained, and did not have enough doctor's care at the time of death. So we end up getting those cases, and we do autopsy and figure out why the person died.
You use the terms cause and manner of death. Can you tell us what cause of death means?
Cause of death is either a natural disease or any event which is ending somebody's life. And a manner of death is how this cause of death came about. If it came about by natural disease process, we call them a natural manner. If it comes about unnatural way, like somebody fell from the roof or somebody got in an auto collision, we call those accidents. And if somebody purposefully takes somebody else's life and person end up dying, we call them homicide. If somebody does everything by himself or herself to end the life, we call them suicide.
What does mechanism of death mean?
Mechanism is a death is a final event or physiological event, how and why the death came about. So somebody might have a disease process since long time, but what was the final event which ended the final few moments of the life and why person died?
Were you working as a medical examiner on March 7th, 2022?
Yes,
Okay. Did you perform the autopsy on a Conrad Imirowicz?
yes, I did.
Do you recall that autopsy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you tell us about the process of performing an autopsy?
The normal process is to examine the entire body. If person is wearing any clothes, of course, we remove the clothes and then examine front to back, head to toe. And if we find any unusual finding on the outside, we have the photographic evidence taken. And then it is followed by the opening the body, like chest and abdominal area, so that we can examine the heart, lungs, and all abdominal organs for any abnormalities or injuries. That is followed by opening the head to look at the inside of the cranium and the brain, again for disease process or injury. And finally, the neck area to see again any disease process or natural event that might create the issue with the circulation or breathing.
Now, what was the process you followed on Mr. Imirowicz's autopsy?
Exactly the same process I just described.
Okay. Was there any departure from normal in that process in this case?
No, there was none. Other than that, his limbs or lower legs were amputated before he died, so I could not examine his legs and feet. So that was the only unusual thing.
When you perform an autopsy, do you consult many medical records that might be available?
If person was in a hospital or previously was in a hospital which is related to the cause of death, we find, yes, we usually get the hospital record as much as we can.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
What records did you review?
We mostly received the pile of record from the Genesis in a Grand Blanc, which is the hospital where he was taken after he sustained the injury.
And what did you find when you were performing your autopsy on Mr. Imirowicz?
From outside, he had several healing ulcers, means the top of the skin, some of the superficial, some of the deep, were present on the head, the forehead, the chest, the left side of the shoulder, the upper arm, the abdominal area, entire back, and some spotted ulcer on the thighs. They were like some injury we sustain and it doesn't want to heal and continue growing again, and then the crust formation, and then you take it out and again it start bleeding and keep on going. So he had those, we call them chronic ulcers.
So, as of March 7th, 2022, some of the injuries he sustained still had not fully healed. Is that what we should understand?
Yes.
Okay. Did you discover anything else in the autopsy of note?
In his inside examination, when I was doing his separate organs, yes, his heart, he was 64 when he died. So his heart was enlarged. The wall of the thickness on both right and left side of the heart were thicker than normal. His inside heart chambers were slightly dilated, indicating that he had some chronic heart disease like hypertension, which many a time usually causes this kind of changes if it is not treated very well and going on. Along with it, I also found his kidneys were also having the effect of the long-standing high blood pressure. So they, instead of nice, smooth, shiny surface, they were having a pitting surface, which is a common finding in a long-standing high blood pressure disease process.
Were you aware that he'd been placed on dialysis while at the hospital?
Yes, when I look at the chart, I was made aware that he was on dialysis because his kidneys were not functioning properly.
Do you know why they weren't functioning properly?
That I could not figure it out, whether they put dialysis before he sustained this injury or after he did that. Very likely after this sustaining injury because he was having a congestive heart failure on and on. He was on medication to treat those ulcers and heart condition. And sometimes that happens, the kidneys don't function properly. I mean, they did not stop completely functioning, but they were not functioning properly. So according to the hospital doctor's best judgment, they put him on a dialysis so that his other unusual chemicals don't start building up in the body.
Can you explain congestive heart failure in this case?
Heart failure is where the heart cannot pump blood properly, either because of the inherent process problem with the heart itself or because of the high blood pressure like in a lot of us have in our older age. So the pumping of the blood against the increased pressure makes the heart strain more, struggle more, and that's why the chamber get dilated, the muscle get thicker, and still cannot function properly. Then it start failing, means the proper pumping of the blood circulation is not going all over the body. We call it congestive heart failure.
Did that happen in this case?
Yes.
Do you know why?
Again, because of this non-healing ulcer since October, he sustained and he died in March. So longer than 5 months, he was in and out of the hospital or in the hospital continuously being treated for this kind of ulcers and chemical burns. So this could be the mostly part of it on top of his chronic hypertensive heart disease and kidney problem.
Did you determine the mechanism of his death?
In his case, mechanism is complications of this chemical burns, means the congestive heart failure, on and off infection in the lung. They were treating him all the time, and the chronic kidney failure. That combination of those complications from the heart, lungs, and kidneys combined ended his life.
Okay. So that's what complications means.
Yes.
So would these complications have occurred but for the burns upon him?
Without those chemical burns, he should not have those complications.
Now you know. Now you know.
His cause of death was chemical burns with complications.
And did you determine the manner of death?
I classified as a homicide.
And what did you base that upon?
Based on the information I was provided that somebody threw the lye and the water on him while he was lying down, almost face down on the left side, because the burn pattern is on the back and on the left side. So sorry, on the right side and face down. So that created the starting situation, and that was done by somebody on purpose to hurt him, and that's why classification is homicide.
So I want to ask you about that. You said the lye and the water. Was there anything what made you think it was lye and water?
Well, part of it is the information provided to me. Of course, 5 months later, I cannot do any test on his body to identify that. But again, the non-healing nature of the ulcer tells me that some chemical was there which was preventing those ulcers not to heal properly. So that's the second medical information from me, and the other information came from investigation.
And you said in particular the burn pattern indicated that he was lying face down and on his side.
Face down mostly, maybe slightly on his right side, because the right side shoulder was not having any burns.
Okay. And when you're preparing an autopsy, do you have to memorialize this autopsy in some way?
Yeah, I do.
Is that part of your job?
Yes.
Do you do that every single time?
Yes.
When do you do that in relation to perform the autopsy?
Well, while doing the autopsy, and just after the autopsy, writing those notes, and then doing the dictation and preparing the report immediately following the autopsy on the same day.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Showing the witness what I previously marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 3.
Yes, this is the copy of the 8-page autopsy report and toxicology on Conrad Imirowicz.
And you said in the toxicology report, what is that?
I don't know about
It is
Chrome
a
throwing up a
routine
hot sauce
process
commercial
for
in a case
blood
about a guy who
examiner
burned to death. That's
take the blood
it's
and
not
other
good
fluid
algorithm.
for analysis. Many a time we find the cause of death from the results of this analysis. Some people die of alcohol intoxication. Some people die of drug intoxication combination. So every case when the fluid and blood
That's
is
awful.
available, we always save it and send it to the lab. And they analyze it. They send us the report. We call it toxicology report.
Doctor, is this report fairly and accurately depict your findings in your process here?
Yes.
Judge, I move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 3.
Mr. Miller?
No objection.
So admitted.
If I can just publish a little bit to the jury, Judge.
Yes. Adjourn seat number 1. Thank you.
It didn't do any commercials this morning. Wonder why it would start. But whatever.
Doctor, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. What are we looking at here on the screen?
Well, on the left side is the first page of the autopsy report, and on the right side is the last page of the autopsy.
Okay. And what information is contained on the left side, the autopsy protocol?
His name, his case number, his age, his gender, his date of death, where he was pronounced and time of death, his date of autopsy, where I did the autopsy, and what date and time I
So this morning she was crying a lot when her
as well
brother
as the
testified,
cause of death and
but I haven't seen her do that.
And on
Even
the
when
other
the
page is the
injuries would
final
be
line of your
described
opinion.
about her
Can you read
father.
it
So
for us?
yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't
that
have a
is,
positive
final, the last
relationship.
page
It's
of
not
the
like she's
autopsy
stone cold all the
report. I
time.
call it opinion, means my explanation why I determine the cause of death as it is, and that it reads that this 64-year-old white male, Conrad Imirowicz, died of chemical burns with complications. He sustained these burns when caustic chemical was thrown on him. He survived longer than 5 months with medical treatment for these burns. There were no other physical injuries. The manner of death is homicide, and then my name and signature on it.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Baroni, you indicated looking at the toxicology report can sometimes tell you the cause of death and perhaps alcohol intoxication. In this case, we talked about this before at a previous hearing, correct? That this person was someone who drank.
Well, because he survived that long, more than 5 months after injury, we cannot run the alcohol 5-month-old, of course. And he was on hospice care lately before he died. So we did not find any alcohol in his system at the time of death.
That doesn't mean there wasn't alcohol in the system at the time he was injured. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Thank you. So, Doctor, you can't say, well, let's put it this way. You testified earlier. Did the liver show any alcohol damage?
No, sir.
All right. And given the time since the incident and the date of death, I believe you testified that the liver can really regenerate and heal itself, correct?
Yes, actually it does. And a lot of people like to hear that if somebody drinks and then doesn't drink for next 5, 6, 7 days, the effect of the alcoholic process on the liver completely heals. So within a week, the liver is back to normal again.
That's good news.
But if somebody continue drinking daily without stopping, then liver doesn't have time to recover completely. And then ongoing process creates the chronic liver failure or alcoholic liver disease. But people who are so-called binge drinkers, they usually don't get those liver disease, long-standing liver disease.
Okay. So do you know what his alcohol level was when he was admitted to the hospital?
No, sir, I was not provided that information. Only information I was provided that he was quote unquote highly intoxicated at the time.
All right. And if I told you it was 355 milliliters, would that make any sense to you?
If it is,
Judge, just, I don't have a problem with the question, except I believe the measure was milligrams per deciliter.
Okay.
It was.
All right.
if it was done on a whole blood, that is normal, we understand. But if it is done by the hospital on a serum, then you have to reduce about 20% to make it a whole blood.
Okay. So unless you look at it, you really don't know what's there.
No, I do not know what part they analyze. In a hospital, mostly they analyze the serum, which is a clear part of the blood. In normal practice, like we do and the state police does, is the whole blood. So the
That's
whole
interesting.
blood is
Didn't know
usually
that.
about 20% less than the serum level.
Now, let's talk about the hypertensive heart disease. What all is that?
Well, it is the blood pressure, which normally is systolic about 120, diastolic about 80. So 120 over 80 is a normal reading. Anybody who has a higher than that, those numbers are called hypertension. Usually 130 to 140 range is called the upper limit. As we grow older, that limit go up higher and higher. Like people like me who is close to 70, my systolic pressure usually is around 150, 160, which is normal. It's not hypertension.
This may be the defense trying to go for this approximate cause situation here.
Between 80 and 90, they
I
call
don't
it
know what the
borderline.
law does for that.
Anything above the 90,
If you have
irrespective of age,
Poor health,
is
usually
hypertension.
not much,
So that
but I'm not sure for
increased
Michigan.
pressure makes the extra strain on the heart, and that's why we call it hypertensive chronic disease, because the heart cannot pump properly.
All right. Now, based on the heart you saw in this case, is that something that had just occurred, or is it something that dragged out and had been going on for a significant amount of time?
It has been going on since a long time, because otherwise I would not see the changes in the heart at the autopsy if it came within a short period of time.
So this has been going on for years.
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you remember taking a look at all at the intake records at Genesis Hospital?
As far as my old memory is, yes, I would say yes, but specifically if you ask me something number-wise, that what was that, I cannot answer that.
Okay. And that, it's been a year and a half. It's been a while. All right. Kidney disease. You indicated there were some issues with the kidneys.
Yes, again, that same hypertension creates the damage on the kidney. Well, medical theory is that either kidney start creating problems first and that causes the hypertension, or hypertension is first and then causes the kidney disease. We, as a medical field, we do not understand exactly which comes first, but they are very closely related to each other. One doesn't go without the other one.
And so they're related, correct?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, that had probably been going on for years too?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you know if he was on dialysis when they brought him in?
That part I do not know.
But he, at some point, was on dialysis, correct?
Yes.
But I don't know that that helps in the case of causing death. I mean, people don't have to.
If they had,
It's not murder or something like
brought
that
him
just
home from
because a
hospital
person
and not
is
put
in
him on
poor health.
dialysis, would that contribute to his death?
That would be, yes, if it, like I say, without the proper functioning of kidney.
I'm not sure. In the
cannot
first part of this case, they were saying
assimilate
he was saying a bug
metabolic,
bomb he had
chemical
used might have
product
caused it,
from
but
the
that's
body.
crazy.
That
So that would go
building
to
up
the whodunit.
metabolic product
the other part, I think, is proximate cause, whether if she did put it on him, could she have reasonably foreseen it would kill him? And here they're saying, hey, he had poor health. He wiped it all over himself. He really killed himself, not her, I think is the idea here
If he went home on hospice,
from a proximate cause standpoint.
what is hospice? Do you know?
Hospice is somebody sent home and say, okay, somebody gonna die within short time, so the keeping that person in a hospital is not worthwhile, both ways. So they are sent home and for the home care only, and somebody either practitioner, nurse practitioner, or somebody visit them almost daily or every other day and check on them. So that much I know about hospice.
And the goal is to
So this was kind of, the old law school hypothetical of somebody jumps off the top of the Empire State Building and you're halfway down the Empire State Building and you fire a bullet out the window and
now,
it goes out the window just as this person comes by. You didn't mean to shoot them, but then you do shoot them. But they were going to die when they hit the ground anyway. So, you go down all these rabbit holes. And the short answer is you're probably in trouble.
The left hand had the finger which were not looking good, particularly the left hand. So the end part of those left hand fingers, from the little finger up to the index finger, they were kind of short and the nails were getting darker.
Now, you didn't do any tests on this chemical, did you?
No, I cannot, like I say, it was time-wise, it was not possible for me to do it.
All right. And you obviously didn't interview Mr. Imirowicz.
No.
You rely on whatever information is in the police report, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if that information is hearsay and based on everything else, you still get to rely on it, right?
Yeah, that is accepted for me as a forensic pathologist. I have to rely on a lot of other department information.
So you go with that information no matter what people have testified to when it comes out, correct?
Correct.
Now, you'd indicated there's some issue with the lungs.
Well, his lungs were heavy, loaded with the fluid, and also there was a scarring on surface of both lungs, which as a pathologist tells me that he had on and off infection in the lungs, which were then treated with the antibiotic and healed. And during the healing process, the scarring formation happened. So that's what I saw, and that's the process of the lung problem.
This guy's pretty straightforward. He's retired.
Do you know when the lungs were damaged?
Again, only thing I can say is it's a long, many weeks, maybe months injury. It's not like a 1 or 2 days old injury. So that is the best I can tell you, sir.
Okay, so it could have been a long time ago, but it's been working on it over time.
Yes.
So had he been healthy without the lungs, kidney, and liver, well, his liver was okay. Lungs and kidney, would he have survived?
If, like I said, that if he did not develop this complication, terminal end complications, he would have survived. Nobody can tell how long, but he would have survived.
Sure. I mean, he could have had a heart attack possibly at any point in time.
Right. Also, if you don't pour a bottle of lye on him and then a gallon of water,
But he had
it's
some
probably
extra
okay
stuff
too.
going on. His heart and his kidneys weren't in good shape, right?
Come on,
Yeah,
dude.
it was to begin with before the injury, but that does not really prevent us to say that the injury and complication caused him death.
Yes, that's pretty obvious.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Nothing further.
He shouldn't have asked that last question. That just reinforced the state's argument.
So, Dr. Varani, I want to ask a couple questions. The first thing is you talked about the nails on his left hand getting darker. What was that indicating to you?
Means again, the circulation in that hand was not going properly, and that's why many a time the nails are the first one to show little bluish discoloration. that indicates that the circulation in the arm was not proper.
Okay. I want to make sure I understand properly. The hypertensive heart disease and the kidney damage, those things go together, you said.
Yes.
And those were things that existed for some time before the actual incident with the burns.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us how long that had been there?
No.
Okay.
I cannot. Again, the effect on the kidneys and the heart I observed at the time of autopsy tells me that it is a long-term process. He has hypertension months and months, sometimes years. Otherwise, he would not demonstrate those physical, visible abnormalities in the heart and kidneys.
But up to the point that he had been burned, those conditions had not caused his death.
No, it might have little add-on effect on it because it's pre-existing condition. But in forensic pathology, pre-existing disease, in spite of having pre-existing disease, the injury take the precedent, and the cause and manner of death are classified according to the final injury.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the infections in the lungs, the scarrings in the lungs, you said. Do you know if the scarring, what was the cause of the scarrings, your determination?
Again, it's infection. Anywhere there is an infection, when it heals, if you have a cut in the skin, it will make a visible scar. But inside, you see the scar, which is, we call it adhesions, means the surface of the lungs supposed to be smooth and floating in the chest cavity, and there should be a vacuum between the chest wall and the surface of the lung, so the lung can collapse, expand, and again breathe in and breathe out. In his case, the lungs were stuck with the inside of the wall on both sides. With a scarring, it is called adhesions, means the surface to surface stuck together. Only way it happens when somebody has on and off infection and healing, that thin lining on the surface, on the chest wall and the lung stick together and
That's
start
terrible.
forming the skull.
So the only way that can happen is from repeated infections.
Repeated infection, yes.
This is not something that can occur from some sort of single one-time acute incident.
No, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about relying on the reports you're given. You indicated you had to rely sometimes on reports from other agencies, correct?
Yes, that is part of our statute, medical examiner statute.
And that went into your determination of the manner of death, correct?
Yes.
Does it go into your determination of cause of death?
Cause of death, mostly what I observed during the autopsy. Very rarely, I can count on my one hand finger that cases that I had to rely on information to find the cause of death. Because then physically and physiologically, I don't have any visible injury on the body, visible disease process in the body. Look, just the example I'll give you is that if somebody's old person sleeping and somebody put the soft pillow on the face and keep little pressure, person stop breathing, person die. You don't see any injury whatsoever related to that part. But the information is documented somewhere that this is how it happened. I call it a suffocation or asphyxia as a cause of death, which is totally relying on information. But that is very rarely happen. In this case, I saw the visible injury. I saw the congestive heart failure. I saw the complications inside of the body. So that cause of death is there. But manner, of course, I have to rely on information.
And so in determining manner of death, would it be fair to say that you can take comparisons? See if the information you're given from outside matches your physical examinations, and if those things go together, you can declare it a homicide.
Correct.
Is that what happened in this case?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have anything else.
Just briefly. Doctor, you don't know how long that chemical was on the body when it was burned, do you?
From the information was what day the chemical was thrown, and that's only how long I can tell you. But how long it stayed on the body before some hospital people cleaned it up, I do not know.
And you rely on whatever those reports say to make your determination, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you have any questions? No. Thank you, sir. Your excuses are written.
Still no jury questions. Interesting.
Judge, I have one more witness today. I'm going to check and see in the hallway if they're here.
Thank you.
Boom. One more witness today. They didn't start this thing early, so I wonder if they're planning on stopping early and then the state starting up again, or surely they're not done with their case. That's a lot more facts about this case than have been presented so far. Yeah, I think he was very straightforward.
Good afternoon, sir.
Was learning things from him.
State your name for the record, please.
Blake Shelton?
And sir, raise your right hand. And because of the name, so.
Under penalty of perjury, you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this court today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Blake Bradford Shelton, BLAKE BRADFORDSHELTON.
Thank you. And do you know a Megan Imirowicz?
Yes.
Do you see her in court today?
Yes.
Can you please point to her and identify something she's wearing for us?
Over there in the blue blouse.
Judge, ask the record reflect the witness identified the defendant.
No.
So noted.
Mr. Shelton, how do you know Megan Imirowicz?
Through my former friend Austin was his sister.
Did you have
Former
contact
friend.
with Megan around October 8th, 2021?
I can't recall the date. Not that I can remember, no.
Okay. Do you have text conversations with her occasionally back then?
In the time prior to the accident, I would speak to her if I was at Austin's house. There was very little text messaging, very little.
Judge, can I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Oops, I need to get this banner down. That's not the medical exam.
You're showing the witness what I previously marked as people's for those at 16 and 17. Can you tell us? Do you recognize those?
Yes.
What are they?
These are photos of text messages between me and Megan.
Okay, so that's a conversation you had with Megan.
Yes.
Does that fairly accurately show the conversation that you had?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I move to admit people supposed to be 16 and 17.
No objection.
So admitted.
And I'm going to publish to the jury, Coach.
Thank you.
So these are screenshots, is that right?
These are photos of the messages we had. Yeah.
Okay. I've got my cursor here on People's Exhibit 16. Okay, well, one second. Got my cursor here on People's Exhibit 16. I'll start showing it. On Exhibit 16, do you see a date there?
Yes.
What date is that?
That's October 8th, 2021.
Okay, and so you were having a conversation. I assume the me in red is you.
Yes.
The blue in the name in blue, Megan, is Megan,
Yes.
the defendant.
Yes.
Okay. So it looks like you reached out to her asking about some money. Is that right?
Yes. We had. I think she had reached out to me about helping her out with a song for a school project or something along those lines. And it was something I believe that she was going to pay me to help her out with.
Okay. And so then she started telling you, she said, I get that. I get that. Sorry. I'm just in a hard place. You probably heard what happened. Right?
Yes.
Had you heard about what happened with her father at that point?
I had not. No.
Okay. So then she goes on to say, I'm dealing with a few things first before I can get to the better things. You indicate you had not heard.
Yes.
Okay. And then on Exhibit 17, there's a series of photos there, isn't that right?
Those are videos. Yes.
Okay, so that's a series of videos.
Yes.
Judge, I'm going to show on the screen here for authentication purposes what I proposed Exhibit 18. And I'm just going to play for a moment. Sorry, Judge, I'm not sure why it's not playing here.
Court technology, always smooth.
Friday morning I woke up and
Do you recall those videos?
I do. Yes.
Is that the video that you were sent?
Yes.
Okay, now there was a series of videos. These have been spliced together and part of them edited so that there's something not admissible in there. But did that fairly accurately record what you were sent?
Yes.
Judge, I move to admit People's Exhibit 18.
Mr. Miller?
He's got his finger on the play
I
button.
guess my question is, have you seen these videos now?
I've seen them, yes.
Okay. And they're what happened on that date?
Those were the videos I received of her.
So defense counsel
my
setting
knowledge,
the
explaining
foundation for
what
the state's
she-
witness,
Well,
for the
before you
state's
get into
exhibit.
what was actually in the
Now the
videos,
judge.
Do you recognize the videos as Mr. DeSantis is going to play them? Have you?
Yes, I've
his
seen them.
indication is that they have been edited. Have you seen
Um,
an edited version?
Judge, I have not shown him the edited version. It was just a cut thing out that I discussed with Mr. Miller.
Okay,
He did, but those are the videos she sent you, correct?
Yes.
Then I won't object.
thank you.
Sweet.
So admitted.
Thank you. I'll display to the court in view.
That's about as dramatic as things have gotten.
I'm gonna send this on the video because I don't feel like texting. But Friday morning I woke up and I went to go see my dad because I had a hair appointment, so I needed him to take me. And he was drunk, and I was like upset because he's like an alcoholic and wanted to stop and everything. So I threw a bag of bread at him because I was angry. I'm not gonna throw something that's gonna hurt him. And I threw a few other things, but I threw like at the end of the couch so it like wasn't near him. And I left. And when I left, I said goodbye to him. He said goodbye. And then I needed his like card info for the hotel because I was going to a hotel for my 18th birthday. And then I had my friend Kayla, go to my house because she lives down the street to get it from him. And she was like, Megan, your dad's not okay. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, there's like burns on it. And I was like, what? Like, I was so confused because I'm like, why is he like, what is happening? I was like, my instant thought was he probably like stood up and fell because he's prone to hurting himself when he's drunk. And I'm always the one who has to go and help him off the floor and make sure he's okay. So I was like, call my brother. I didn't know what to do. So I just told her to call my brother, and they called an ambulance. And it's like, apparently there were like chemical burns on him. And I'm like, I was so like, I don't even know what's happening. And then my brother's like yelling at me saying, I did it. I didn't do it. When I left, he was perfectly fine. I would never intentionally hurt my dad. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm against violence. That my dad's like my best friend. I'd never hurt him. And my brother wasn't even there. And Lucas, Kobe, and Bella West over here are like, since they're all best friends, they were like talking to the police, and they were like, yeah, Megan did it. She did it. Were you there? No, you weren't there. Neither was I. Nobody knows what happened. But they all blamed me because people like you in this world don't know how to shut up. And so they all they blamed me. They said it was my fault. I wasn't there. I didn't. Cops came to the hotel I was at, and they were like, so your dad is severely injured. He's in the hospital, and everyone's saying you did it. You mean everyone who wasn't there? Is that because what? And they were saying like my mom said that my dad didn't know what happened. He didn't know. Like, so how are y'all gonna arrest me for that shit? So I said, take me to jail. Even though I'm fucking innocent, they took me to jail. And I was there until yesterday. I got out. And then I have to live with my mom now. Just like no problem. Like, I'd rather be here and happy and be able to be the girl that I know I can be and have my future and everything. But my brother and Bella and Lucas all have my cat, so I have to go get that. The whole school fucking knows, and everyone's gonna judge me, even though they don't know what fucking happened. I'm like, I have like court dates and everything, but hopefully everything turns out good. But yeah.
Mr. Shelton, was that the videos you received?
Yes.
Is that the first time you had heard about the incident?
Yes.
Did you ever talk to Megan about it after?
I believe that after I received these, I had stopped communication. So I don't believe so.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
No questions.
Ladies and
Good
gentlemen,
idea.
here, any questions?
I don't know, man. Even if it were an
I don't have any
accident or
other
whatever.
witnesses for today. Thank you. My two remaining witnesses in this case are, of course, the trooper who's an officer in charge and goes last. And my remaining witness is Dr. Laura Seawald of Hurley Medical Center, who is an ER doctor who's working today and is
Yeah.
tomorrow at 9:30.
Wow, 2 witnesses left. That's it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it
Super
is
fast.
2:25. We
Oh.
are going to conclude for today. I will have you come back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Okay? Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, I'm sorry, please don't talk about the case, even between each other. No researching anything, no looking on the internet, dictionaries, encyclopedias, anything of that nature, okay? Have a great night.
All right, Jerry?
Well, that was kind of wild. I don't think she looked very good in those videos. I mean, her dad's allegedly best friend, whether he was or he wasn't. I took from earlier in this trial that she had a very negative relationship with him based on other descriptions. And her demeanor was been like this when they discussed his skin falling off, lungs burned, tracheotomy, legs amputated, and all that.
Mr. Stannis, you will be concluding tomorrow?
I will.
Okay, and then you'll be calling witnesses.
I'll be calling witnesses. I'm going to move them up from Thursday. I'll try and get in here probably Wednesday afternoon.
Okay, okay, we will start at 9:30. I'm gonna do my motion call in the morning. Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you, everyone.
Wow. Well, I think the thing is, this case has just gone extremely fast, probably faster than the judge imagined it would. And anyway, so if I can do it, I'll come back for it tomorrow because this is gonna be one of the faster homicide type trials that you're gonna see, I think. Yeah, and it seems that way to me. But what do I know? I'm not that generation. He said he had some witnesses. He didn't mention her, but he certainly doesn't have to at this point. Don't need to address that if they haven't already. The state's case to me is a little shorter than I thought it would be if they only have 2 witnesses left. I thought they'd have a bit more to show about the circumstances surrounding that day. And the ER doctor can only do so much of that. And then the trooper too, although that might be who interviewed her, I think probably at the hotel where she said, yeah, I threw something on him. So that's probably their concluding witness, that or the horror of the injuries, one or the other. So that's it. And I appreciate that. And thanks for everybody who did come by. Yeah, I agree with that. It looks bad to me. All right. Well, if you guys want to see the rest of this and we'll talk about it tomorrow, then hopefully we can. And thanks and have a good rest of the day.